Shalom Shalom, Mishpocha! Welcome to another edition of Ray Bash's Ramblings. Today I'm going to be talking about Rebel Without a Cause. You're saying, hold on a second, is Ray Bash starting to turn into a movie critic? Well, yeah, sorta. But I love to watch movies, and I love to dig deep and find out what the message is in movies, because I think it has something to say to my life. And I especially love it when I find out what the message is and I could relate it to something in the scriptures. And it's great. And I've been watching a lot of these classic movies, these great movies. One of which is a very iconic movie called Rebel Without a Cause. It was unfortunately James Dean's last movie, and just the famous picture of him in his jeans and foot up against a brick wall, and him holding the cigarette and the red jacket, and the combed slick back hair. Such an iconic picture, and a lot of people fell in love with James Dean. But Rebel Without a Cause dealt with the corruption in Western society, especially in the home unit, and how teenagers had a rough time growing up. The 50s weren't all bobby socks and poodle skirts and Happy Days and the Fonz. There's a darker side to the 50s. There's a darker side to every generation and every era. I grew up so naive watching Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley and thinking those were the good old days, and everybody was wholesome and pure, and it was so Leave It to Beaver. And I was so naive not to realize that there was such a darker side, that bad times and corruption just didn't happen from the 70s on when I was born, because I saw all that. I witnessed that. It was way back. And it's always been that way. But Rebel Without a Cause, it was speaking to the home unit, speaking to families, because teenagers were beginning to feel like they didn't belong, they didn't fit in the home, they weren't loved or appreciated by their parents, and they had to go elsewhere to find acceptance, to find love, to find belonging. We see that today in gangs that are roaming the streets, the Bloods and the Crips and, all of this. Because they feel like they belong, and the child and the parent can't relate. And that's kind of what Rebel Without a Cause is all about, where these teenagers run away from home and create their own family, basically. And one of the characters was totally messed up. His mom and dad basically left him to be raised by his maid. And he always wanted a father, he always wanted a mother, and he found that in James Dean and Natalie Wood, their characters in Rebel Without a Cause. The movie ended tragically, and it ended tragically to basically tell the people to wake up. And ever since then, there's been other iconic movies that are based on this exact same theme. In the 80s, you have The Breakfast Club, about these kids from the different strata, social strata of high school. They all had Saturday detention. You had the prep, you had the jock, you had the nerd, you had the punk, you had the hood, you had the freak, you had the cheerleader, and you discover they all have the exact same type of problems, and they were close knit. And then afterwards, they had to go back to their little cliques and be what the school expected them to be. So basically what this movie is talking about is, if you've ever seen the TV show on TLC, Shalom in the Home, with Rabbi Smalley, I believe it is, you've got to have shalom in the home. That's what the book of Genesis begins with. It begins with the family unit. And if things get corrupted and get out of hand in the family unit, how are you going to affect your neighborhood? How are you going to affect your extended family? How are you going to affect your country? How are you going to affect the world in a positive way? Just as Rav Shaul was talking in the books of Timothy and Titus, how can you be a leader or a minister if things in the home aren't right? And you know what? It's a constant job. It never fails. You never get to a point where it's all Leave It to Beaver and Brady Bunch, and it's all perfect. Because it's not. It's something that you constantly have to work at. Just like a marriage. A family is just like a marriage. Many people get divorced, after, a couple years. And, some don't make it. I'm going on, my 14th year, I believe? 14th, 15th year? Shh, don't tell my wife, I can't remember the years. it's a guy thing. We can't hold numbers like that. But we've been married for about 15 years. And divorce has never been in our vocabulary. And year number 6 was the roughest, and I'll tell you why. Because the dynamics of our personality and of our lives changed. When we got married, we thought it was going to be this fairy tale, and that it was all going to be the same and happily ever after. And we failed to realize that, you know what? As we grow together, we grow as individuals. And we have to grow as individuals, realize that we change, that things do not stay the same. Who wants a stagnant marriage anyway? Who wants a stagnant individuality, a stagnant life? We realize that our likes, our dislikes have changed. We were growing as people, as individuals, and we failed to grow together in those aspects. And I discovered I had to date my wife all over again in the 6th year of our marriage. I had to court my wife all over again in the 6th year of our marriage. We had to learn each other all over again. Because you know what? I woke up one morning and I looked at my wife and I'm like, who are you? I don't even know you. She's like, funny you should say that because I don't know you either. Because we've both changed. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you grow and change in positive ways. So the family unit needs to stay knit, needs to stay tight. You need to put your, besides God, you need to put your spouse first. Next to your spouse, you need to put your family. Next to your family, you need to put your spiritual family. And that is the order and the dynamic of the way things go. If it's out of order or out of whack, you put your ministry first, you're going to be like Billy Sunday, the famous preacher, and lose your family. If you put ministry first, you put money first, your ministry is going to be destroyed. And you're going to end up like, Jim Baker. And you don't want that. So keep God first. Keep your spouse next, and then your family next after that. And then comes ministry, your spiritual family and ministry and things like that. But you know what? James Dean was like, it's a zoo. It's like a zoo at my house. It's like a zoo at my home. He had a dad that couldn't stand up for himself. He had a dad that was sissified, and he was ashamed of his father. He had a mother who was nagging and over domineering, and they were constantly at each other's throat. He was getting mixed messages from his parents. And you know what? Today, what our children need is the man and wife to be one, as they should be in marriage. They need to be on the same page. They need to be telling their kids the same things, or you're going to create a chaotic situation. You're going to create a zoo, and naturally your children are going to rebel. Because you're not together, you're not unified, you're not on the same page. So husbands and wives, get on the same page, get unified, get together, and fulfill those biblical roles that have been clearly laid out for us in the scriptures. And then you will be able to lead a successful family. I know I've kind of bounced everywhere and have been all over the place, but that's how that movie really spoke to me and spoke to my heart and compelled me to give this message that I'm giving to you now. So, besides your personal relationship with God, your most important thing is your marriage. Next to that, your most important thing is your family. Then it's your spiritual family, and then it's your ministry. And everybody has a ministry. You don't have to be a rabbi to have a ministry. We all have a ministry. So I pray sincerely that this message spoke to you. And maybe you'll watch these movies and maybe you'll enjoy the classics like I have, and maybe you'll get the same thing out of them that I did. So, shalom and Shavua Tov Mishpocha. Love y'all.